Hi there, this is Grace over at the Monroe Ben Franklin, and today we're going to be doing a photo transfer onto wood. Looks really nice and rustic. You can see the wood grain through there. And this is what you'll need for your supplies. You'll need a photo printed out on regular printer paper on a laser printer. And if you have any words that appear in your photo, you'll have to mirror them before you print it out. And then you'll need scissors just to cut out your photo, a little scraper tool. You can use a credit card or a gift card. And then a brush of some sort. We're going to use a foam brush that'll help with brush strokes later on, you'll see. And then a file, this is kind of optional. And then matte Mod Podge is what we'll be using to transfer the image onto our wood surface. So I've already trimmed out my photo here just to the size of my surface. And then I'm going to use that matte Mod Podge with my foam brush. And I'm just going to coat a nice even coat. You don't want it too thin, but you also don't want it too thick, covering my entire wood surface. All right, so once you have that coated, I also like to do a coat on my photo, just about the same thickness as we did on the wood. All right, once you've coated both your photo and your wood surface, you're just going to carefully flip it over onto your surface, trying to have as least amount of bubbles as you can. This is where you're going to use that scraper tool. You're just going to scrape out any of those bubbles and kind of smooth out the surface. If you have any extra Mod Podge, it'll kind of squish out the sides there. And when I get the extra Mod Podge, you can see it's kind of coming off of my scraper. I'm just wiping it off on a towel so I don't get as much as I can from on the top of the paper. You just want to use a nice even pressure. I'm not pressing too hard, but I'm also not pressing too light. Once you get it positioned and smoothed out so there's not any bubbles or wrinkles, I'm just going to kind of go and wipe any excess off of my edges that I spilled over. Once you finish that, you're just going to let it dry, preferably overnight, but at least 4 to 6 hours, and then we'll come back and do our next step. Alrighty, so we have let our picture dry completely, and then I'm just going to take a rag that is wet, and I'm just going to kind of rub it all on the surface and get it nice and saturated. And once you've got it nice and wet, you're just going to start rubbing with your finger, and you'll start to see the paper kind of roll up, and then you'll start to see that ink show through. So we're basically going to do this until we have all of that white paper rubbed off and we're just left with our ink on our wood surface. And you'll have to kind of continue to add more water and dampen it again once it starts drying out, because that really helps to get the paper off. All right, so I've rubbed off as much paper as I pretty much can get, and you can see it's kind of drying, and there's still a little bit of whiteness on my photo, but we're gonna put a final coat of Mod Podge over the top, and you'll see it will kind of hide any of the leftover paper, but you wanna get as much off as you can. And you can see it started distressing kind of naturally when I was rubbing the paper off, and also, if you rub too hard, you'll actually kind of make those distress spots as well. It's a little bit of wet. So you can kind of force some distressing to happen. You can kind of see that I'm taking that ink off there. So you want to be careful when you're doing around the main focus of your picture. You want to be really careful around the faces and whatnot so you don't distress unless you like that look, of course. Little paper left there, I noticed. And then once you kind of get it how you like, you can, I like to distress the edges a little bit more just so it doesn't look so square. So I'm gonna go around and kind of do that. So you can kind of distress it by rubbing it with your finger until you get the ink to kind of come off. You can also use your fingernail and kind of just scratch just that edge so it's a little bit more rugged and jagged. And then you can also use your file tool and just file just that very edge and kind of get it to distress a little bit. So I'm going to go around and do it around all the edges of my piece because that's kind of the look I like. And then we will finish off with our final coat of Mod Podge to seal up our picture. All right, so when you've finished distressing it to your liking, I'm going to give it one last wipe down with a cloth just to get any of the debris that's left over on my wood surface off. And then you'll let it dry one last time and put your coat of Mod Podge over the top. All right, so now it is all dry from that water, and you can see it's left just a little bit of that, little bit of paper is still left over, kind of adds like a little bit of haziness, but with our final coat of Mod Podge, that will cover that up so you won't notice it, and it'll look less hazy. So we're gonna apply our coat of Mod Podge. Just over our entire picture, all the way to the edges. All right, once you have a nice even coat, we're gonna let this dry and then we'll come back and show you the final result. Alrighty, so our final coat of Mod Podge has fully dried, and you can see all that little paper isn't as noticeable now, and we have our beautiful distressed wood piece with our photo of our choice. And we hope you guys give this a try out. Give us a like and a follow, and we'll see you next time.